"Daddy, please, you have to come home." These were the first words my daughter said when she called me on Skype at my station in Afghanistan. "What's wrong, baby?" "It's Mom, Dad." Even with the poor quality of the video, I noticed that she was crying. "What's wrong with Mom?" "She's dating another man." My heart stopped. My wonderful wife of 18 years has always been devoted to me and our daughter Stacy. "Honey, are you sure? Maybe you're wrong." "Dad, she goes out with him 2 or 3 times a week. Sometimes she doesn't come home until 2 or 3 in the morning. This morning she didn't come back until 7. Dad, I'm scared." I had a hard time swallowing the lump that rose in my throat. "Do you know who this man is, Stacy?" "I think his name is Donald." "Donald Connolly." "Yes, that's him. I only saw him once, when he picked up my mother. A tall, thin man with short black and gray hair. If it's him, then he's the mayor. He drives a big, expensive car and sometimes picks up Mom in a limousine." It made sense. Kathy worked on his campaign. Maybe she just goes with him to party meetings or something like that. But if this is so, why does she come back so late? "Dad, I really want you to come home, please," Stacy begged me. "Honey, I'll try to do something, but whatever you do, don't tell Mom." "I won't, Dad, but please come quickly before something really bad happens." "I'll try. I love you, Stacy." "I love you too, Dad." My name is Robert Crawford. I'm 42 years old, and I'm a design specialist at a large electronics company. I'm also a major in the National Guard, and so I'm on a year-long tour of duty in Afghanistan, where I'm serving on a command staff. I have been married to the love of my life, Katie, for 18 years, and the fruit of our union is our amazing 15-year-old daughter, Stacy. Katie is 40 years old, but she looks even younger. She is the most beautiful woman I have ever known. 5 feet 6 inches tall, a gorgeous body that only got better after the birth of our daughter. Her dark brown hair reaches her shoulders, and her warm brown eyes always sparkle when she smiles, and she smiles all the time. I can say with confidence that our marriage was strong, even when I was sent to serve. Our time together was warm and loving. Our sex life was hot and always satisfying. I never doubted her loyalty, just as she never doubted mine. So what happened? I didn't have the slightest idea. I completed all the necessary paperwork for 30 days of emergency family leave and boarded a flight that, 26 hours later, brought me to my home airport, where I rented a car and headed home. It was 6:30 on a Friday evening when I stopped the car half a block from my house. The mid-November sun had already set, and the street lights cast an eerie glow over the surrounding area. I saw lights on in the living room, kitchen, and master bedroom on the second floor. I could even see my wife walking past the window several times. It seemed like she was getting ready to go out. I called my daughter's cell phone, and after 3 rings, she answered in a quiet voice. "Dad, is that you?" "Yes, honey, don't say anything, but I'm here, just half a block from the house." "Oh, Dad, thank you," and I heard her start crying. "Is your mom going out somewhere tonight?" "I'm pretty sure. She's been in her room for over an hour. I heard the shower turn on, and now I hear her humming. She looks like she's really looking forward to this evening." "Yeah, I guess. It makes me sick, Dad. Why is she doing this to us?" "I don't know, Stacy, and maybe your mom doesn't know either. Let's not judge her until we know what's really going on." "What are you going to do?" "I'm not entirely sure. I think I'll just keep an eye on them to see what's going on before I decide how to react." "Be careful, Dad. Do you need to change?" "No. I think my camouflage fatigues stand out enough to create a little shock and awe when the time comes." "Good luck, Dad. I love you." "I love you too, Stacy, and no matter what happens, you and I will always be together." At 7 o'clock, a black Mercedes pulled into my driveway, and a tall, slender, well-dressed man got out of the car. I thought he would go to the door, but he talked on his cell phone for a few seconds, and the lights in the master bedroom went out, and a minute later the door opened and my wife walked out onto the porch. She made sure the door was closed behind her, then quickly walked towards her companion with a wide smile on her face. She looked breathtakingly beautiful, and my heart broke into a million pieces when I saw her look back at the house to make sure Stacy wasn't watching before giving our famous mayor who stole my wife a kiss on the lips before he helped she got into the car and they drove off. Luckily, I was collected enough to take a photo of the kiss with my cell phone. I followed them at a safe distance, and since the movement was quite sparse, I had no difficulty staying behind them. They drove across the city and pulled into the parking lot of the Radisson Hotel. I parked a half-dozen spaces down and watched them as they got out of the car and entered the building. They walked close to each other, hugging each other, and I took another photo. It was obvious that their romance had been going on for a long time. They were so confident in each other that they looked like a happy married couple on a date. I waited for them to enter the hotel, then put on my camouflage hat and sunglasses and followed them. I didn't see them when I walked in, but I wasn't worried. I received a few of the usual smiles and "thank you for your service" comments, which I gratefully accepted while checking the information board that listed the current events taking place at the hotel. One that stood out was the St. James's Hospital Charity Ball. It was held in a ballroom on the third floor, and music from a live orchestra was already wafting into the lobby. Ignoring the row of elevators carrying well-dressed couples to the top floor, I took the stairs, not wanting to immediately attract attention, and realizing that my legs needed a workout after sitting on the plane for so long. When I reached the third floor, I followed the music and easily found the ballroom. I slowly walked past the entrance, glancing inside, and sure enough, there they were, right outside the door, looking and acting like a happy couple greeting friends and supporters. My wife even glanced at me for a moment, but I did not see any recognition on her face. Why not? Because as far as she knew, I was still 10,000 miles away, fighting flies, sandstorms, and the Taliban. Oh, and I also noticed that she wasn't wearing any wedding rings. When I passed the entrance, I went into the men's room and sat in the booth, trying to figure out his next steps. I had a hard time understanding what I was seeing. I was so confident that my marriage with Katie was as strong as it could be. How stupid I felt. Probably the entire time I was in Afghanistan doing my duty for my country, my loving wife was here at home, humiliating me, ruining our wedding vows. And what was wrong with all these people they met? Didn't they know that the woman hanging on the mayor was married to an army officer serving overseas? I felt warm tears running down my cheek, but I wiped them away. This was no time for self-pity. I needed to come up with a plan and put it into action. At this moment, I had an enemy much more dangerous than the Taliban. I stayed in the bathroom stall for half an hour, giving the party enough time to gain full momentum before I walked through the ballroom door. Only a few people at the entrance paid attention to me as I carefully moved along the wall and slowly moved to an area away from the bar and food tables, to a secluded area behind a column where I had a clear view of most of the room. I didn't have a ticket to the event, but my uniform carried more weight than any paper ticket. The young man taking the tickets even saluted me and said, "Welcome, sir," as I walked through the door. A thought flashed through my mind. It's a pity that my wife and her lover don't have the same respect for me and the uniform I wear. It took me a few minutes to find Katie and her companion. They danced to a slow tune, my wife's arms wrapped around his neck, her head resting on his chest. I took a few photos, but it took a lot of effort not to rush onto the dance floor and kick the bastard off his feet. But that would only give me a little satisfaction and most likely send me to jail. What I wanted, what I needed, was absolute proof of their affair, and then I would find a suitable way to get revenge for their complete disrespect for me, our daughter, and the U.S. Army. They did one more dance, then, holding hands, walked to their table, exchanging a kiss and caress before sitting down. I photographed it all. I had seen enough for now, so I walked out into the hallway and found a spot where I could watch the ballroom doors and elevators. As an Army officer, I learned to be patient, and it paid off as another 2 hours passed before the event began to wind down and people began to file out the doors and onto the elevators. It didn't take long before my wife and the mayor came out and stood at the door talking. After a minute, They smiled at each other and walked together towards the elevators on the left, but instead of pressing the button down, they chose the one that took them up. It was more than a little strange. I was only 15 feet away from them, sitting on a bench against the wall, dressed in my camo fatigues and sunglasses, my name clearly displayed on the front of my uniform, and I looked completely out of place among the tuxedos and evening dresses, and although many other couples noticed me and smiled or waved, my wife and her lover were so engrossed in each other that they didn't even look at me when the elevator doors opened and they walked in holding hands. I watched as their elevator stopped at the 11th floor and waited to see if it would go up again. This did not happen, and in fact he returned to the 3rd floor, where other couples were waiting to go down to the lobby. I headed back to the registration desk. I know this is an unusual request, but I have an important message for Mayor Connolly that I have been asked to deliver personally. I have shown my ID. I need to know what room he is staying in. The young girl at the counter looked worried. Sir, I'm really not supposed to divulge this information. Young lady, if it weren't so urgent, would I be here in my uniform? She nodded several times and then checked her register. He's in room 1114. Thank you, miss. I went to the elevators and got off on the 11th floor. The arrow pointing to numbers 1101 to 1134 pointed to the left. I walked past room 1114, looked back to make sure no one was in the hallway, and put my ear to the door. I could hear faint sounds of conversation, but that was it, so I continued down the hall until I found a door leading to the stairs. I thought it might close behind me, so I put a handkerchief between the door and the lock. Then I checked my watch, midnight. Stacy said her mother usually gets home between 2 and 3 a.m., and one day recently she was back at 7, so I had a long wait ahead of me, but again, my army patience paid off. I could see number 1114 through the window in the door, so I wouldn't miss their exit. While I waited, I tried to focus on the task at hand, but the truth was that I kept imagining them together. You could say my heart was broken, but it was so much more than that. I felt like my life was spiraling into a dark abyss where only pain, rejection, and humiliation lived. I knew that I had to control myself for the sake of my daughter, but the knowledge that the woman I loved more than anything in the world and trusted with all my soul was at that very moment giving her body and soul, her love and passion to another man, was overwhelming me with a wave of pain. At about 1:30, I walked out of the stairwell and put my ear to their door again. Tears streaming down my cheeks, I returned to the flight of stairs. I assumed they would soon wrap up their session and leave their love nest within the next hour. At 2 o'clock, I left the flight of stairs for the last time and stood against the wall opposite their room, waiting for them to exit. My cell phone was set to record video, and after 15 minutes, I heard the chain being removed from the door and the click of it opening, and I started recording them leaving their room. He put his arm around her waist, and she snuggled up to him, smiling. Katie looked freshly bathed and pleased. Donald Connolly looked pleased with himself. They kissed briefly and turned toward the elevators, and Katie noticed me leaning against the wall. "How was the sex, Katie? Looks like you two had fun," I said. Katie finally noticed me and suddenly looked like she was about to faint. She put her hand to her heart and screamed, "Oh, Bob, no. Oh, God, please, no, this can't be true. You weren't supposed to see this." And she fell to her knees. It took her lover a few seconds to realize who Katie was talking about, and then he said, "Look, buddy, it's not what you think. She was just helping me with a new campaign." "Yes," I said. "I see. I think having sex with her and ruining her marriage is the new campaign tactic. I wonder how voters will react to this when the newspapers and TV stations find out that you had sex with an army officer's wife while he was serving in Afghanistan protecting your country." "Wait, listen, there was no sex. Tell him, Katie." "Shut up, Mr. Mayor. Don't try to make a fool of me. I saw kissing outside my house and on the dance floor and heard everything through the door. You won my wife, she's yours now, and I'm sure you're both proud of that. All this happened behind my back while I was suffering from sandstorms and dodging attacks 10,000 miles away. Even my daughter knows what you were doing." Connolly stood stunned, not knowing how to respond, and my wife was crying, curled up in a ball on the floor. Don't bother coming home today, Katie. Stay the night with your lover. I'll go console our daughter and file for divorce on Monday, right, after I tell the media what kind of mayor is running this town. I have 30 days. Emergency leave, so don't come here until I get back. Then you can decide how to continue with your new life. Bob, please, I heard my wife say. Please, what, Katie? Please forgive me for cheating on me with another man the entire time I was on a business trip, possibly longer. Please don't tell our daughter what you've been doing. She already knows everything, Katie. She was the one who asked me to come home. I can't imagine why you did what you did, but obviously you had your reasons. I hope you and he really love each other, because now you have no one else, each other. I turned and walked towards the elevator. I'm sorry, Bob, she sobbed. Sorry about what, Katie? Sorry that I found out? Sorry that I caught you? Sorry that I ruined your new life as the city's society queen? I've been watching you from the moment you left our house until the way you just left room 1114, and I never saw a hint that you regretted anything. On the contrary, you looked as happy as possible with each other. I wish you a good life. Dry yourself and die, both of you. And I entered the elevator, pressing the lobby button. When I got home, I found Stacy waiting for me, and I noticed she was crying. She rushed to me and hugged me. Oh, Dad, I missed you so much. I'm so glad you're back. I missed you too, baby, more than I can express. Did you find them, Dad, Mom, and the mayor? Yes, baby, I found them, and I'm sorry to say, but you were right. I don't think your mom will be coming home anytime soon. I don't care, Dad. She's been ignoring me almost completely since you left. Please take me with you when you get back. Baby, I have to go back to Afghanistan in a month, and as much as I want you by my side, you need to stay here. I can't stay with her, Dad. I hate her. No, Stacy. No matter what your mother has done to me and our marriage, she is still your mother. She doesn't love me, Dad, and she hugged me tighter, crying. Finally, I convinced Stacy to go to bed and lock the house, including the door chains, in case Katie decided to try to come back. I had no evidence that Katie and her lover had used any of our bedrooms for their meetings, but I didn't want to take any chances, so I slept on the couch, even though I wasn't sure they weren't having sex there too. Sleep came only in fits and starts 45 minutes here, half an hour there. I kept thinking about how I would behave when Katie came to pick up her belongings and personal items that she would need until I left in 30 days. I could have been a nice guy and gotten a hotel room and left the house to her, but I just couldn't find it in myself to be that kind. She ruined our marriage, so she could at least endure the minor inconvenience of being evicted from her home for a month. Besides, I'm sure her lover will be happy to provide her with shelter. They acted like a married couple. Now they could live like this for a while. Let's call it a trial marriage. Stacy and I slept until noon, or at least intermittently until noon. I got up first, made some coffee, and then made toast and scrambled eggs for the two of us when Stacy finally came out of her room. We talked about small things while we ate, and as we were rinsing the dishes and putting them in the dishwasher, the phone rang. Stacy and I looked at each other, then she answered. Hello? Oh, hi, Mom. Yes, he's here. No, I don't think he wants to talk to you. Why would he? There was a pause while she listened. Mom, actually, Dad and I both have a hard time believing that you're sorry. It's not like you accidentally kissed him once. You've been dating this guy since Dad left. Yes, I told Dad I needed him to come home. Mom, you ignored me for months. The only thing you were interested in, the only thing that mattered to you, was your affair with Donald Connolly. Mom, please think with your head. Why shouldn't I tell Dad not to touch Mayor Connolly? This evil man deserves to be punished and severely punished for what he did. Sorry, Mom, that won't happen. Bye, Mom. Stacy turned to me. She looked scared, Dad, like she doesn't understand what's going on, like she thinks her cheating on you isn't that big of a deal, and she can't understand why you don't want her back home. She doesn't understand. Doesn't it matter? Well, I promise that before I'm done with both of them, She will understand what she did and how many people were hurt because of her behavior. The house was quiet most of the day. I tried not to think about what Katie might be doing with her lover, and Stacy tried to talk to me to distract my thoughts. We did discuss what would be best for her when I returned to Afghanistan. I thought she would be happier staying in her home, going to her school, hanging out with her friends, but Stacy was afraid that her friends would turn on her when they found out about the terrible things her mother had done. I told her that true friends will stay with her, but she wasn't convinced. We agreed that I would call my mother to see if Stacy could stay with her until my deployment ended, which I hoped would be in 5 or 6 months. Late that evening, the phone rang again. It was Katie. I answered, but as soon as I heard, Bob, oh Bob, please give me a chance to explain, I handed the phone to Stacy without saying a word. What, Mom? Stacy's voice was cold and hard, and she held the phone away from her ear so I could hear what her mother was saying. Stacy, I need to talk to your dad. I already told you, Mom, he doesn't want to talk to you. But I need to explain myself to him. What can you explain, Mom? How do you explain what you and Donald Connolly have been doing for the last 6 months? It's not what you think, Stacy. Oh no, Mom, that's exactly what Dad and I think. You turned on both of us in the worst way a woman can turn on her family. Shame on you, Mom. Shame on you. I heard Katie crying. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, Stacy. But you still hurt, Mom, the people who loved you more than anything in the world, and you tore the heart out of the only man who was willing to die for you. I hope you're proud of yourself, Mom. I hope your dirty affair was worth it. Because he cost you your family, whatever that means to you, I only hope that one day you wake up from this fantasy world you live in and realize how selfish and stupid you were. Oh, please, Stacy, I love you and your dad. Yes, of course, Mom, and pigs fly. If you loved us, you would show it in a completely different way, but I dread to think what you would do if you hated us. Do you need something, or I can go back to spend time with Dad? I heard the sound of Katie crying. I need some things, she said quietly. I need clothes and my pills. What pills, Mom? Oh God, my pills for unplanned pregnancy. Oh, of course, how stupid of me, of course you need them. You can't get yourself pregnant by the mayor, right? That would make your life a lot harder, wouldn't it, Mom? Is it hard to kiss on the dance floor when you're pregnant and fat? Okay, I'll tell Dad and he and I will collect your clothes and pills. And my makeup too, Stacy. Oh, that's right, Mom. Of course, as the society queen of this city, you need to continue to look beautiful for His Highness, the mayor, and your fans. I'll have everything at the curb by 6 p.m. so you can come and pick it up. Have a nice evening, Mom. She hung up and immediately started crying. I hugged my daughter. You were tough on your mom, Stacy. I know, she said, sobbing. I don't like what I said, but I'm so angry that I couldn't help myself. I needed to talk. I get it, baby, I get it. We'll get through this, Stacy. We won't let them win. I hugged her again and left her alone to pack my mother's things while I went to my office. I needed to think, and there were a lot of things that needed to be done in the coming days. My military training allowed me to work through everything methodically. I was an expert at drawing up battle plans, and this was, by all accounts, a battle. The usual things weren't difficult. Finding a good divorce lawyer, canceling our joint credit cards, getting one credit card in my name and one in Stacy's name, changing the beneficiary of my insurance and retirement plan to Stacy, and transferring half the money from our checking and savings accounts. Accounts to accounts accessible only to Stacy and me. The more difficult challenges involved how to punish Mayor Connolly. He needed to pay for everything he had done, and pay in such a way that he would be no better than the pathetic coward who stole someone else's wife. Part of the answer to this problem came at 8 p.m. in the form of a phone call, which I answered. Crawford's residence. Robert Crawford. I didn't recognize the voice. Yes, Major Robert Crawford. I don't know why, but I decided to clarify this right away, probably to show that I was serious. Major Crawford, my name is Ray Swanson. I am a member of the City Council and a friend of Mayor Connolly. I would like to talk to you about a little misunderstanding involving you, your wife, and the mayor last night. A little misunderstanding. Is this the city's official story that Mayor Connolly spent the night with my wife at the Radisson until 2 in the morning? Now, don't do that. There's no need for that kind of language. We're just talking about a small party between two adults who have probably had a little too much and lost control a little. I'm sure if we just talk, we can do anything. Settle. There's nothing to settle, Ray. Mayor Connolly has been sleeping with my wife for the last 6 months while I was in Afghanistan, and I caught them last night. I understand how difficult this is for you, Major, but I hope we can find a way to work things out for the benefit of everyone. Who is this everyone, Ray? My only interest is my daughter. The rest can go to hell. I'm sorry you think that way, Major. The mayor is a powerful man in this community, and any incident that could discredit him could result in, shall we say, negative consequences for whoever caused the incident. Are you threatening me, Ray? I'm just telling it like it is, Major. Personally, I would hate it if something happened to you or anyone close to you. Let me tell you something, Ray, and I advise you to listen carefully. I have been dealing with the Taliban for the last 6 months, meeting them at every turn and bringing them pain and suffering. Never think that I will back down in the fight against the pathetic mayor who stole another man's wife in a town barely visible on the state map. You and your friend, the mayor, have never faced an opponent like me. I don't care how powerful you think you are dealing with the devil if you decide to compete with me. This is what my soon-to-be ex-wife forgot to tell the mayor before she had an affair with him. You may have the money, Ray, but I have every man and woman within a 100-mile radius who has ever served in the United States military. You see, we don't like men who take advantage of our soldiers' wives while they're fighting overseas. In fact, we despise and hate them. Here's some advice for you, Councilman Swanson. Don't mess with me. Stay as far away from Mayor Connolly as possible, or you may find yourself caught up in the flames that are about to fall on your good friend Mayor Connolly. Major, please, let's be reasonable. Are you sure there is a sum of money, let's say a large sum of money, that could make a difference and make amends for the grievances caused by this accident? There are no hard feelings here, Ray, just a cold, blinding rage that a man like Donald Connolly took advantage of a soldier's wife while he was fighting overseas, and there isn't enough money in Fort Knox to make up for it. The only way I can be satisfied is to see Connolly and my wife experience the same pain they caused me and my daughter, and you can convey this message to both. Let them have their fun, because I promise you, in the near future, they may not want to do this anymore, at least not with each other. Major, listen, I'm in a difficult situation. When word gets out about this, a lot of heads will roll. There has to be a way for this to all go away. Well, if you really want this to happen, start with Connolly publicly admitting that he had an affair with the wife of an army officer, while that officer was fighting in the war in Afghanistan. Then he should apologize, admit his mistake, and leave from the post of mayor of this city, sinking into obscurity. He may even take my unfaithful wife as a consolation prize. Nothing less will change my decision to publicly humiliate him and bring him to his knees. Damn, are you really serious? As serious as I can be, Ray. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to make dinner for my daughter. And I hung up. Stacy came in from the garage. I took my mother's things to the curb, and someone I didn't recognize in a black Mercedes stopped and took them. Well, I hope this man was sent by the mayor for your mom. Otherwise, her nice things will end up in the thrift store. I'm not sure the thrift store will be able to do anything with her pills. I smiled at Stacy, and she giggled. I packed her usual things, but I couldn't bring myself to include her pretty nightgowns. She has some pretty skimpy negligees that I haven't seen before. Just looking at them makes me sick. It's okay, Stacy. Thanks for handling it. She simply nodded. You know you'll have to talk to her eventually. I know. I'll talk when I'm ready and the time comes. The rest of the weekend passed without incident. Stacy helped me do my laundry while I worked on my plan to take down Mayor Connolly. On Monday morning, I called a reporter I knew at a local newspaper and set up a meeting. John Foster met me for coffee at Dennis's. He was a good guy and a respected reporter, and a few years ago, he was a sergeant in my National Guard company. How can I help you, Major? John, I have information for you, and what you do with it is up to you. It may seem like self-interest, and to some extent it is. As you probably know, our company was deployed to Afghanistan for the last 6 months. Foster nodded. Well, what you may not know is that all this time Donald Connolly was having a fairly public affair with the wife of one of our soldiers. What's the soldier's name, Bob? I would prefer not to say, John, unless it becomes absolutely necessary. I know that if I were cuckolded by a scoundrel like Connolly, I would not want it to become known. I understand, Major, but I cannot make unfounded accusations against the mayor of this city without risking prosecution. Do you have evidence of an affair? Yes, there is, and I showed him the photos and videos I took. Of course, I would appreciate it if the woman's face was a little blurred. Foster understood immediately and looked awkward. Are you sure you want to go through with this, Bob? Do you know the truth will come out eventually? I shook my head sadly. I know, John, but I'll have to deal with the shame. It's not that I knew about it while it was happening. While Connolly was sleeping with my wife, I was 10,000 miles away in this vile sandy hell, dodging bullets. The real shame lies with Connolly. You are one of us, so you know what a betrayal it is to take advantage of the wife of a soldier in combat. Foster looked sad and nodded. I'll see what I can do. Are you sure this happened the whole time you were away? Yes, there are other people who knew about this all along, people who cannot be named for their protection. I transferred the photos and videos to his cell phone, and we spent another 10 minutes discussing the 3 guys from our company who gave their lives on this mission. Then we shook hands and went our separate ways. My next step is to find a good divorce lawyer. I found a few names online, and after checking their references, I chose one that looked promising. R.J. Collins, a lawyer, had an office downtown, and I made an appointment for that day. When I got to the office, I was surprised to find out that R.J. meant Raven Joy, a 40-year-old woman with graying hair and a determined look. Major Crawford, how may I help you? I liked that she got straight to the point. I need a divorce, and I can tell you straight, it won't be pleasant. She rolled her eyes. There are no pleasant divorces, Major, but I play by the rules. Why won't your divorce be pleasant? Because while I was in Afghanistan for the last 6 months, the mayor of this town regularly slept with my wife. Her eyes widened, and she dropped her pen. You mean Connolly? I nodded. Major, you have my attention. Over the next half hour, I told her everything I knew while she took notes, occasionally stopping me for clarification or questions. Your daughter, Stacy, is she an only child? Is she 15 years old? How does she perceive what is happening? She hates it. It tears her apart. She doesn't want to be with her mother when I go back to Afghanistan. Well, she's old enough for the court to respect her wishes, but since she can't go to war with you, is there any other option other than your wife? My mom. I'll call her to see if she can take Stacy for the rest of my deployment. I'm sure she'll be happy to have her granddaughter with her for a while. We talked for about another hour. I gave her information about our finances, and she said I needed to talk to my wife to see if there was any chance of overcoming what had happened. I told her that if she saw the way they looked at each other, she would understand why Kathy and I could never put this behind us, and I wanted the papers done as soon as possible. Another week passed. This time Katie called the house a total of 5 times to talk to me. Each time I said I would let her know where and when and immediately ended the conversation. On Friday, I received word from my lawyer that the divorce papers were ready to be served. She just wanted to know where to do it. I said I would invite Katie to my house the following Monday at 2 o'clock while Stacy was at school, and she would be given the papers then. I called Katie on her cell phone and said that I wanted to meet her on Monday at 2 o'clock at her house. She tried to keep me on the line to begin her apparently prepared speech to justify her behavior, but I interrupted her. saying that she would have plenty of time to explain when we met. On Monday, Kathy arrived a few minutes before 2 o'clock, and we sat down at the kitchen table. When I saw her, my heart beat faster. She looked. Probably the affair with Connolly did her good. Coffee. No, just water, please. I know you want a chance to explain yourself, and I will give you that opportunity. Thanks, Bob. I don't want you to be unprepared, so I have to tell you that after a while, someone will come and serve you with divorce papers. Katie's face turned pale. Why, Bob? I don't want this. I didn't want you to have a 6-month affair with Donald Connolly either, but apparently neither you nor I are getting what we want. Bob, please, if you listen to me, you will understand why this happened and how we can overcome it. I nodded. Speak. You know, I worked on Donald's election campaign. We often found ourselves together at various events, and gradually we became friends. When you were sent to Afghanistan, I felt lonely and depressed. Donald invited me to lunch, and I could talk it out. He really helped me get through the pain of being separated from you. Then one day he invited me to dinner, saying that there would be very influential people there, and that it might be better to use my maiden name and not wear wedding rings to avoid rumors. I then talked about it. I didn't think about it, but now I understand that taking off the rings was a mistake. We met a lot of people that evening, and they all saw me as an unmarried woman. When did the sex start? She looked down at her hands. Not right away. We danced that night, and when he dropped me off at home, he kissed me goodbye. And you let him. I was lonely, Bob. I spent a romantic evening with a handsome man, respected in society, who treated me like a princess. He treated you like a princess while your husband was at war, and that gave you the right to disrespect me. No, of course not, but I was confused. You were so far away, and I missed you, and, I don't know, he just made me feel good. I nodded, and she continued. We went out to dinner a couple times a week after that, and to more and more events. I started having such a good time with him that I missed you less. Sex. She looked down at her hands again. A month has passed since you left. Donald and I were seeing each other 2 or 3 times a week. One evening, after a romantic dinner, he suggested we go to his house. And you went. She nodded sadly. And I went. After that, I felt terrible. I even threw up, and I made him take me home. I told him that I couldn't see him anymore, that I loved my husband, and I couldn't believe that I cheated on you while you fought. But you changed your mind. She nodded sadly again. Donald left me alone for a few days, then he called and said that he missed me. He said that he wanted to see each other again, but only as friends. He promised that he would no longer put me in a compromising position, which made him feel bad too from what happened. And you met him again? Yes, that weekend he invited me to a party with one of his friends on the cliffs. It was an intimate party, just 5 or 6 couples, all very important people. During the evening, the wife of a famous doctor asked me how I managed to win the heart of the most eligible bachelor in town. She caught me off guard, and I couldn't think of a plausible answer, so she said that my husband and I were separated and were going to get a divorce. In such a small town, this information spread quickly, and I felt trapped in Stacy's weekend with her. Friends at camp, and I ended up spending the weekend at Donald's house. Well, as they say, the rest is history. Yes, I'm so sorry I hurt you and Stacy, Bob. It's the worst thing I've ever done in my life, and I'd give anything to fix it. But you can't. No, I can't. Do you love him? I don't know if I love him. I really like him. We have so much fun together. Yes, I remember. Sex can be a lot of fun. Is he a better lover than me? No, oh, I don't know, it's different. Have you been living with him since I caught you at the hotel? Yes. And you're still sleeping with him? Yes. Are you going to marry him? I don't know, we talked about it. The doorbell rang. I think it's up to you, Katie. She stood up and slowly walked towards the door. Are you Katie Crawford? She nodded, and was handed an envelope. "You have been served with a subpoena." Katie stood for a long time, looking at the door, clutching the envelope in her hands. When she finally closed the door and turned around, I saw that she was crying. "So is this really the end between us, Bob?" "Yes, Katie, this is really the end. You did it yourself. But I love you so much." "No, you loved the life we led, but you threw it away. Now you have to find another life." "What will happen to Stacy?" "She wants to go live with my mom until I finish my deployment." Katie burst into tears. "Oh God, what have I done?" The next day, a photograph appeared on the front page of the local newspaper with the headline, "Who is the mysterious married woman leaving the hotel room with Mayor Connolly?" A photo of Kathy and the mayor kissing as they left room 1114 was captioned, "Does her husband serving in Afghanistan know what's going on?" An accompanying article gave details of a charity event the couple had attended together and reported that hotel records clearly showed that the mayor had booked the room for the night and that the couple had been photographed leaving it at 2 in the morning. The article also said there were unconfirmed rumors that the couple had been dating for the past 6 months, while the woman's husband was serving in Afghanistan. The article stated that the newspaper felt it had the right to cover the story because of the high profile of the man involved in the scandal and the serious breach of trust in the soldier in the combat zone. A scandal ensued. Within minutes of the article's release, the mayor's office began taking damage control measures, claiming that the article was a complete fabrication, that Mayor Connolly would never do anything that would jeopardize anyone's marriage, much less the marriage of a soldier serving border. They also stated that the photo was apparently doctored and that some unknown miscreants were trying to smear the mayor, and he would hold a press conference later in the day to clear the air. It all sounded convincing, but unfortunately, over the past 6 months, too many people have seen Connolly and Katie together. They never tried to hide their feelings for each other in public, and one by one his friends and supporters began to distance themselves from him. Several people anonymously called the newspaper to confess that they knew about the couple's affair because they had witnessed it more than once and expressed outrage upon learning that the woman's husband was serving in the army while the affair was taking place. Mayor Connolly held a press conference that afternoon, but none of his friends on the city council supported him. In fact, the only people behind him were his office staff, and even half of them were absent for some reason. However, there were journalists from newspapers and television who recorded everything as Connolly talked in horror about being accused of such an unthinkable act. He assured everyone that he and the woman in question were just acquaintances and had never done anything to disgrace them or her husband. In the middle of his speech, Katie made her way through the crowd of spectators and approached the microphone. To Connolly's horror, she said, "My name is Kathy Crawford. I am the wife of us Army Major Robert Crawford, and I have been having an affair with Mayor Connolly for the last 6 months." At this point, Connolly tried to push her away, declaring, "I don't know this woman, she's lying." "Yes, you know me, you bastard, and it's time for us both to admit what kind of brats we are. I'm so ashamed of what I did to my husband that I want to die, but I won't let you stand here and lie." She turned to Connolly, who by this time was flushed with rage and shame. "Robert, you knew I was married, that my husband was serving in Afghanistan, and you still pursued me, and I was such a fool that I listened to you, and now I have humiliated and lost the only person who ever loved me." Tears streamed down her face. "I am so ashamed and hurt, and I will regret this for the rest of my life." At that point, Katie looked straight into the cameras and said, "Sorry, Bob, I love you," and walked away through the crowd as reporters peppered the mayor with questions, and he turned and quickly walked back into City Hall. Admittedly, letting the whole world know that I was a cuckold took a toll on my already fragile ego, but I knew what I was getting into when I approached John Foster, a journalist friend of mine. The next day, when the city council president announced that the mayor had resigned and that the city would be governed by the council until a new mayoral election could be held, I should have felt pleased, but instead I felt a deep sense of loneliness. I missed my wife more than I could imagine. A journalist friend of mine called me that same day to tell me that Connolly had packed up and left town without leaving a return address, and that my soon-to-be ex-wife had not left with him. I spent as much time as possible with my daughter while I was on vacation, and in the last week I let Katie come back into the house while Stacy and I went to my mother's, who lives 60 miles away, where I enrolled my daughter in school, promising that I will return for her as soon as my service is over. The next week I found myself back on a plane bound for Afghanistan, my heart filled with burning rage that I intended to unleash on the enemy lurking in the desert. Mom, oh my God, answer the phone, pick up the phone, pick up the phone. Stacy, honey, is that you? You sound like something scared you. What happened? It's Dad, Mom. He's hurt. He's hurt badly, very badly. My heart stopped. How do you know, Stacy? What happened to him? Where is he? I felt like I might faint. He's over there in Afghanistan. The army called me. They said something about a roadside bomb going off, and that Dad's Humvee got caught in the middle. Oh God, no, I screamed. He's not dead. Please tell me he's not dead. They said he was seriously injured and that they would have more information in a few days. Days? Several days? Why can't they tell us now? And why did they call you, Stacy? Why not me? Mom, Dad is divorcing you. He changed his contact information to me. Of course I knew this. After what I did to Bob, I didn't deserve to be the first to know about him. Did they tell you anything else? They said he'd been going on missions lately when he shouldn't have, but he kept saying it was his duty to fight alongside his men and that he wouldn't stand to lose as much as most of them if something bad happened. Will happen. It's like him. Do you think what I did had something to do with him taking risks? I don't know, Mom, but I wouldn't be surprised. He was very angry when he came back to Afghanistan. Maybe it made him take risks that he wouldn't normally take. Stacy, you know that after he left, I followed Donald Connolly when he left town, right? Yes, I heard, Mom. That's why I didn't want to talk to you until it was absolutely necessary. I know you're disappointed in me, but Stacy, when I found out that your father wanted nothing more to do with me, and Donald forgave me for revealing our affair to the press, I just felt like I need to be with someone who will love me and take care of me. It's your choice, Mom. You have to live with the consequences of your mistakes, not me. Have you ever thought about what your decisions cost you and what they cost everyone else? It doesn't matter. Look, I have to go. I'll let you know if I'll find out something else. My name is Katie Crawford. Until recently, I was the wife of Major Robert Crawford. Well, technically, I'm still his wife since our divorce won't be final for another 3 months. Long story short, I had a long, very public affair with Donald Connolly, the mayor of the small town we lived in while my husband was in Afghanistan. My husband found out about this, caught me with my lover, and destroyed us both, as we deserved, by telling the press about our dirty affair. The outrage in the community when they learned that their mayor was having an affair with the wife of an army officer, while he was fighting forced Mayor Connolly to resign in disgrace and me to wear an invisible scarlet A on my forehead. Donald and I initially broke up, and he moved to a neighboring state. However, a month later, he forgave me for publicly admitting our affair, and I followed him, and we have been living together ever since. Do I love him? I think so, although not as much as I still love the man I cheated on. Sex with Donald has always been good and still is, and we've discussed the possibility of getting married once my divorce is final, but I'm not sure. My daughter has wanted nothing to do with me since the affair was discovered, and it took me all this time to start building a relationship with her. But Stacy made it clear that if I married Donald, she would never talk to me again. And now this news is that Bob is wounded in this terrible country, so far from me, and I can't do anything about it. I can't go to him, and I can't even be the first to hear from the army about his condition. I know I deserve to feel some of the pain I caused Bob, but it's killing me inside. Donald came home from his new job as assistant manager at the local dentist's to find me crying. I told him about Bob being hurt, and although I know how he feels about my husband, his answer surprised me. Good. Serves him right, the bastard, for causing us so much trouble. Bob didn't give us problems, Dawn, we did. I was married to this wonderful man, and when he was 10,000 miles from home, we both just wiped our feet on him. If you love him so much, why don't you go to him? I was seriously angry. If I could go to him, Dawn, I would. But after what we did, he doesn't want anything to do with me anymore. So why does it matter to you that he's hurt? When we're in bed, you always tell me that I'm so much better than him in bed. I never said you were better, Dawn. That's your big ego talking. You do make me feel good when we have sex, but there's a difference. Bob always made love to me, and you just make sex with me. And I'll tell you something, if Bob could forgive me and bring me back, I would be out of here and back in his arms in a second. You really are just a woman of easy virtue, aren't you, Katie? His words hit me like a slap in the face. Yes, Donald, I guess I really am, since I'm with you, and not with my family, for whom I would give my life. I'm a woman of easy virtue, and you're just a petty thief who stole his wife, and the assistant manager of a diner in Dennis's. Quite a pitiful fall, isn't it, Donald? He looked like he wanted to hit me, and I screamed at him, "Don't you dare. The biggest mistake of my life was letting you get into my head with your false promises. I missed my husband and was constantly worried that he would be hurt or killed, and you kept saying that you wanted to help me forget about my problems, and you succeeded. I pushed all my worries and everything I cared about into the background and jumped into bed with you, forgetting about my husband, about my daughter, and the precious life I had with them. Instead of being the woman I was raised to be and putting my family first, I was with you and sex became the only important thing in my life. What a fool I was, Donald." I felt hot tears begin to flow down my cheeks, and I turned around, grabbed my bag, ran out of the apartment, got into the car, and drove away. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew one thing: if I stay with Donald Connolly another minute, I'll kill myself. I was floating in a deep black vacuum. Warmth and darkness surrounded me. I heard voices that seemed far away, but I could not understand what they were saying. Where have I been? Am I dead? What happened to me? I tried to remember, to escape from this emptiness. I tried to shout, "Here I am," but I had no voice. Then absolute darkness swallowed me and carried me away. The light from somewhere is too bright. Turn it off. My warm, protective blanket of darkness dissipated like fog, replaced by noise and pain. Come back. Don't go. Major Crawford, can you hear me? Can you open your eyes? Someone tapped my hand. The voice was soft and gentle. Go away, let me sleep, I try to say, but nothing comes out. Wake up, Major Crawford. Open your eyes. Another tapping, light and soothing, almost like a caress. I try my best to force my eyelids to obey, and slowly they open. My eyes begin to focus, blurry images begin to turn into shapes, and I see a kind woman's face bending over me, a warm hand resting on my arm. Welcome back, Major. You've been gone for a while, I hear a soft voice say. Where am I? My voice is a hoarse whisper. My throat feels like it's covered in shards of glass. You are at the Landstuhl Military Hospital in Germany, Major. You have been wounded. My people, what's wrong with them? As far as I know, 2 of them were wounded along with you, and one, Corporal Eddings, died from his wounds. I felt tears running down my cheeks. How? I don't know all the details, Major, but I understand that your Humvee was hit by a roadside bomb. My injuries? Colonel Sands, your attending physician, will be in to talk with you soon, she said softly, adjusting my Roman 4. Until then, rest. And once again, the blessed darkness swallowed me. Mom, it's me. Stacy, did you find out anything about Dad? How is he? Where is he? He's in Germany, Mom, in a military hospital. Oh my God, how is he? How seriously injured is he? It's bad, Mom, but he will live. I began to cry, almost uncontrollably, guilt and grief hitting me like a tidal wave. Why, God, why Bob? He doesn't deserve this. I deserve pain. Donald Connolly deserves pain, but not Bob. He didn't do anything wrong. It's not about who deserves what, Mom. Dad always protected everyone. He protected me and you, and he wanted to protect his people. The officer who called me said Dad was a hero. After the wide went off, Dad was wounded, but still pulled 3 people out of the Humvee and moved them to a shelter. But when he pulled the last person out of the wreckage, a rocket hit the side of the car, and this added to his injuries. However, he somehow managed to drag the soldier to safety, all before I lost consciousness. I was devastated. The man I betrayed nearly gave his life for those he loved, while I gave myself to a man who only cared about his own blind ambition. How will I ever forgive myself for being so selfish, cruel, and stupid? Tell me about his injuries, Stacy. Like I said, Mom, this is serious. He's been stabilized, and as soon as he's strong enough to be transported, he'll be sent to a hospital here in the States, but they don't know where yet. I felt dizzy and thought I was going to be sick. I want to go to him, Stacy. I need to be near him. I don't think this is a good idea, Mom. Dad has made it clear that he wants nothing to do with you. I don't care, Stacy. I fucking don't care, I shouted at her. I've ruined my life and my marriage to the best man in the world. I've made myself a laughingstock in my hometown and an outcast to my family. For the last 9 months, all I've done is cause pain and destruction. And for what? For what? For nothing. I lost everything, and I'll never get it back. And you know what? I don't deserve this to come back. I deserve this empty, lonely life I lead. I deserve all the pain and suffering I'm going through, and you're right, Bob wants nothing to do with me, but I don't care. I don't care. I should be with him. What about Connolly, Mom? Donald Connolly no longer exists, Stacy. He is dead to me, just as I am dead to your father. My injuries were serious. I was alive, although I wasn't sure if that mattered. I longed to see my daughter, and even though my wife completely betrayed me in the most public and humiliating way, deep my days were unbearably long and painful. The doctors told me that I was stable and would be sent home to the States in a few days. They asked if I wanted to go to the hospital closest to my hometown. I said no, anywhere but there. They said that in time my body would recover, and I nodded. Yes, my body will recover, but what about my heart? After I left Donald Connolly's apartment, I drove around aimlessly for hours, unable to comprehend how I had ruined the lives of everyone I'd ever loved and made my life a living hell. I didn't know where to go and what to do. I knew only one thing: I would never return to the person to whom I so easily gave my body, destroying my marriage. I hated him, but I hated myself even more for what I had done. All my belongings consisted of a bag, the clothes I was wearing, a cell phone, a wallet, 2 credit cards, and $227 in cash. I was mentally exhausted, so I got a cheap motel room for the night, and the next morning I decided that no matter what, I would find my husband. And even if I can no longer be his wife, I will be whatever I can be: a helper, a friend, a slave, a concubine, whatever he wants me to be, and I will spend the rest of my life desperately trying to atone for my sins. The move from Germany to the States took only 1 day. One long military evacuation flight, and I found myself in a military hospital in Bethesda, Maryland, where my immediate future consisted of more surgeries and countless hours of physical therapy, interspersed with even more countless hours of debilitating boredom. The first phase of operations involved the reconstruction of what remained. It all seemed endless, and as the days dragged on, I would wake up from the anesthesia to see countless faces of people I had never met, but who seemed determined to help me become whole again. Finally, one night I woke up in pain, feeling someone holding my hand. Warmth flowed through my hand and filled my chest, and as my mind finally became aware of my surroundings, I saw the face of my beautiful daughter Stacy before me. "Hey, Dad, how are you feeling?" Her voice was like the voice of an angel. "Hi, honey," I managed to say, my voice shaking with emotion. "I'm fine. I feel much better now that you're around." I saw a tear roll down her cheek. "You look good, Dad." You mean for the old soldier who forgot to dodge at the right moment? You're not old, Dad, and at least you dodged enough that I wouldn't lose you. Yeah, that probably means something, right? She nodded and tried to smile. Yes, that means something. When did you arrive? Yesterday, but they didn't let me see you right away. You were in surgery and they wanted you to rest. Damn, all I do is relax. Can you stay a little while? I can stay another 2 weeks if you want. Of course I want to, Stacy. How was Grandma? How was school? She's fine, but she's very worried about you. I promised to call her as soon as I saw you. She'll feel better knowing that you're doing so well. And school is school, what else can I say? I looked at my beautiful daughter and was shocked at how much she reminded me of her mother. How is your mom, Stacy? Are you communicating with her? She's devastated, Dad, completely devastated. What she did to you has finally hit her like an atomic bomb, and honestly, I don't know if she'll ever recover from it. It's sad, Stacy, really sad. You still love her, don't you, Daddy? Of course I love her, Stacy. I will always love her. You and your mom were my whole life. Every second of the day, with every breath, I thought about you too. Even after she did what she did, I still remember what she was like and how happy we were together. I think if it weren't for this damn war, and I would never have left you too, none of this would have happened, and we would all be together. I think it's not about the war, Dad. I think that Mom just fell under the influence of a very bad man who looked after her and didn't take no for an answer. I heard she went back to Connolly. Is she still with him? Stacy shook her head. God, no. She hates him. She doesn't even mention his name. She knows that when she let herself fall under his influence, she ruined you and her whole life. She's changed, Dad. I don't think so. You'd recognize her if you saw her. She's lost weight, she doesn't smile anymore, and all she talks about is you and how she'd give her life to feel your hug one more time. She's so depressed that I'm not sure if she wants to live. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded my head, having difficulty swallowing the lump in my throat. How quickly life can change when you least expect it. It's so sad what people can do to themselves and those they love. She wants to see you, Dad. She knows nothing can happen between you two, but she desperately wants to see you. I don't know, Stacy. I'm not sure it's a good idea, with the way I look now. I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. You're my dad and a war hero, and you're more of a person now than anyone I've ever known or will ever know. She's not a hero, Stacy. Yes, Dad, you are a hero. The officer who called me told me how you saved the lives of soldiers in your Humvee, how you pulled them to safety, even though you yourself were seriously wounded. One of them didn't make it, Stacy. But you tried to save him and save the other two. And you are the most beautiful person I have ever seen. And she put her head on my shoulder and cried. I was so afraid, she sobbed. I thought I lost you. I patted her on the back with my bandaged right hand. But you haven't lost me, Stacy. I'm here and we're still together. Dear Bob, I know you don't want to hear from me anymore, but I have to try to reach out to you, if only to feel like I'm doing something to atone for all my terrible sins against you and Stacy. I heard about your injuries, and I can't help feeling guilty about them. I understand that there is no point in repenting how wrong I was, and I will never ask you to forgive me, knowing that I will never be able to forgive myself. But I have to tell you that without you my life has turned into an endless series of painful days and nights, filled with the awareness of how much I hurt you. I would gladly give my life if I could take it all back and change everything. But of course, well, You should know that you were right about Connolly, as you always are about everything. He's just a little creep who stole his wife, and now I see him for what he is. Why I couldn't figure this out sooner to save our marriage, I'll never know. With you, I was an adored wife and mother, constantly loved, beyond all understanding, protected and happy. With Connolly, I was a fairy princess, foolishly and selfishly believing that I was doing nothing wrong, just having a little fun while you were away. Oh God, Bob, how I hate myself. I traded your loving embrace for a few minutes of selfish pleasure, and you should know that in no way was he a better lover than you. Sex with Connolly was fun, I admit. Sex with you was filled with love, warmth, affirmation of life, and was so wonderful. How desperately I want to feel you again, loving me, making me whole, filling me with your body and soul. The thought of giving up everything for nothing, fills me with hopeless despair. Sorry for writing so awkwardly, but I think I miss our evening conversations more than anything else. For those times when it was just the two of us, when we hugged and talked about everything and nothing, quietly putting all the pieces of the world together. These were the most precious moments of my life. Bob, I want to see you. I don't ask or expect anything from you, but I desperately want and need to see you. Stacy says you think you don't look the same anymore. This is nonsense. Even though I foolishly lost you, you have always been and remain the greatest person I have ever known. If you lost both legs, both arms, and both ears, it would mean nothing because of that great soul that lives inside of you. Stacy says that you consider yourself a hero, although you deny it. I'm not surprised in any of these cases. You saved lives by risking your own, and I know you would do it again and again because that's who you are. So now I'm asking you, begging you, Bob, save my life. Let me come to you, nothing more. Let me just sit quietly in your room and be with you for an hour or two. We don't have to talk because I suspect you have nothing to tell me, but please, Bob, for the last time, let me see you. Let me have this last memory to take with me forever. I know it means nothing to you, but I never stopped loving you, and I never will. Katie. Katie, you can come. Bob. It was an all too familiar feeling that I began to hate, even though I knew it was a necessary evil. A slow awakening from yet another operation, this time on what was left of my right leg, in preparation for the installation of a space-borne artificial limb that would give me some semblance of a normal life. At least if my pelvis heals properly and hundreds of hours of physical therapy don't kill me. Ugh, I felt a little nauseous and would have given anything for a sip of water as my mind began to decipher the indistinct sounds around me and my eyes began to focus on whatever came into view. I saw a doctor and two nurses come into my field of vision, as well as an officer with an eagle on his lapel, which meant he was a colonel. I didn't recognize him, but he smiled at me, so he decided I wasn't in trouble. I turned my head to the side and saw that there were other people in the room, two young army officers standing by the door talking quietly, someone sitting on a chair in the far corner, and yes, my beautiful daughter Stacy. What a pleasant surprise. "How are you feeling, Bob?" the colonel asked me, and I looked at him again. "Not bad, sir," I replied, "a little sleepy and thirsty for water, but otherwise fine." I turned my head a little towards one of the nurses. "Can I have some water, please?" "No water, Bob, not yet, but I'll get you some ice to suck on," and she left. I held out my bandaged right hand and called out to my daughter, "Stacy." "Yes, Dad," she interrupted the conversation with the one who was sitting on the chair and came up to me. "Do you have a hug for your old man?" Enough with this old man already. She kissed me on the cheek and hugged me softly. "Wow, you need to shave," she laughed and reached across my chest to grab my good hand. Her touch was warm and wonderful, and I felt her love flow into me. I turned my attention back to the colonel. "What brings you here, sir? Am I being reassigned?" "No, Bob, not yet. We need to get you back on your feet first. However, I have a reason for being here. It seems your heroic actions in Afghanistan have caught the attention of many people." "I'm not a hero, sir. I was just doing my duty, like any soldier." He nodded. "I understand how you feel, Bob, but the Army doesn't see it that way. They consider you a true American hero and are considering rewarding you for it." "Thank you, sir. I appreciate it, but I truly believe there are others more deserving of recognition." "You may be right, Bob, but there is more to this than just gratitude. We have a lot of reliable first-hand information about what you did, and the truth is the truth. You were on the verge of death, saving the lives of the soldiers under your command. One of them didn't survive, sir." I felt tears begin to accumulate in the corners of my eyes. I know, Bob, and this attempt of yours may be the most surprising of all. Witnesses say you pulled Corporal Eddings out of the Humvee, and as you pulled him toward cover, an RPG hit the side of the vehicle and knocked you both to the ground. Although unknown to you, Corporal Eddings was mortally wounded, but you continued to drag his body to the shelter behind the wall. When you completed your task, you lost consciousness, and the soldiers with you were sure that you were dead. But I'm not dead, Colonel. No, Bob, thank God you didn't die. 2 more Humvees cleared the area of the enemy. A tourniquet was applied to your upper leg, and you were transported to the base hospital in time to save your life. Stacy laid her head on my chest, and I felt her tears soak my shirt. I also realized that I could hear crying in the room. I really don't know what to say, sir. Don't say anything, Bob. I just wanted to let you know that in addition to the Purple Heart, you will most likely receive another award in the future when you get back on your feet. Stacy whispered, "Oh, Dad," and began to cry, resting her head on my chest. "Oh, Bob," a familiar voice rang out, and I looked in shock at the corner of the room where the man was sitting. It was Katie, my soon-to-be ex-wife. It was my daughter who spoke to her when I came out of anesthesia. Our eyes met, and she covered her mouth with her hand and began to sob, then quickly stood up and ran out of the room. Until this all happens, it's best to keep it a secret. Sir, I am absolutely not worthy of any reward. Yes, you are, Bob. Yes, you are. Take care of yourself. And I watched as he and the 2 junior officers turned and left the room. Oh, Dad, I'm so proud of you, said my precious Stacy. Your mother was here. Yes, Dad, she arrived last night. She's been sitting in the corner since you left for surgery this morning. She ran out of the room. I think the knowledge of what she did to you continues to consume her completely. I've never seen anyone grieve the way she grieves for you and for everything she's done. I told you before, I don't know if she'll ever get over this, and now that you can have this medal, it's even clearer to her that she's done irreparable damage to the greatest person she's ever known. I told her she could talk to me one last time, but it wouldn't change anything. She's done too much. She's gone too far. There's no going back. She knows that, Dad. She told me that she just needs to confess everything once and then leave. Can you forgive her, Stacy? I'm trying, Dad. I hate everything she did to you, to us, but she's my mother. I won't have another one anymore, so I'm going to try to restore some kind of relationship with her. I hope it doesn't hurt you, Dad. You are my daughter. I expected nothing less from you. You know, I told her that I don't need her confession. I already know what she did. I think her confession is not only for your benefit, but also so that she can move on with her life. She feels like she needs to admit to you what a fool she has been. She has told me many times that she knows that you will never forgive her and that she cannot forgive herself. If this were in the Middle Ages, I am sure that she would spend the rest of her life wandering aimlessly on her knees in rags and with ashes on her head. The rest of our conversation was interrupted when the nurse brought me ice and told me I needed to rest. It was an emotionally charged morning, and I had a lot to think about. Find your mother, Stacy, and try to help her. She needs to stop killing herself over this. It's all done, it's over, she needs to move on. I don't think she can, Dad, but I'll talk to her. I slept for several hours, and when I woke up, the room was dark. My mind was like a whirlwind of wild emotions. I'm not a hero, I just did my duty to my people, and that's all. And here in front of me is the woman whom I loved so much, and now I don't feel anything for her. The pain in my leg after the morning operation, all this was intertwined in my head at the same time. I felt my heart begin to race, I was covered in sweat, and it was difficult for me to take a deep breath. I reached for the call button and saw her standing by the window, looking at me. Katie, is that you? I heard her voice, almost in a whisper. Yes, Bob, it's me. What are you doing? Just watching you sleep. You're in pain. Can I call the nurse? My leg is a little bothersome, but overall I'm fine. I'll be back soon. She left and returned a few seconds later, accompanied by a nurse who adjusted the medication in my Roman 4 and the position of my bed to make me more comfortable, waited a minute while I nodded my thanks to her, and left, leaving Katie and I alone in the room. This was the first time in 3 months that I had seen her, and it was difficult for me to find words. "How are you, Katie?" "Oh, Bob, it's been better, and how are you?" "A little shabby, I'm afraid." I heard her start to sob. "Bob, I'm so sorry you got hurt. I feel like it was my fault." "Maybe a little of your fault, Katie, but mostly mine. This is war, you know, things happen here." I felt the old anger welling up inside me again, and I tried my best to suppress it. "Why are you here?" My tone suddenly became hard and cold, and I heard her gasp. "I don't want to bother you, Bob. I just had to see you one last time." "Why, to rub my face in it again?" "No, God, no, just to confess to you." "I don't need your confession, Katie. I know what you did." "I need this, Bob. Please just listen to me, and I'll go away and never bother you again." "I can't see you. Why don't you turn on the light?" "No, Bob, please, no light." "Then come closer. I like to see the person I'm talking to." She took a few small, hesitant steps towards the bed. "Is this enough?" I could see her face. "You cut your hair." "Yes, you got a haircut." "I always liked your long, shoulder-length hair. It smelled like lemons." "Okay, what did you want to say?" I heard her sigh, and then she spoke. "Bob, I betrayed you in every possible way that a wife can betray her husband. I should never have intimate conversations with another man. I should never have lunch or dinner with another man. That's not what a wife should do, because that after the first intimate conversation, the first lunch, and the first dinner, it becomes easier and easier, and the feeling of guilt becomes less and less. I sinned before God when I danced with Donald in my arms and let him kiss me when he drove me home. And I betrayed our sacred vows that night when we had a candlelit dinner and Donald asked me to go to his house. Even then I knew that I needed to stop everything and leave. I knew that if I went to see him, Donald would have sex with me, and to be honest, that's what I wanted. God, I'm so sorry, Bob. I wanted this. You had only been away for a month, but it felt like a year. I missed you so much. I knew how terribly wrong it was to go with Donald, but I went and willingly opened up to him. My stupid, reckless, childish fantasy even told me that you would want me to have fun while you were away, that you wouldn't want me to be bored, and that what I was doing wasn't hurting you or our marriage, because you weren't there, but Donald was. I became his princess, went everywhere with him, did everything he wanted. I even told him that I loved him. Oh God, Bob, how I betrayed you, and I did it with a smile on my face. I began to ignore my own daughter, as if I thought that I was deceiving her too, that she did not realize that her mother had become the worst possible mother. I even denied our marriage, telling everyone we were getting a divorce, kind of a prophecy, wasn't it? And then everything turned to dust and dirt that night when you returned home and found me leaving the hotel room on the arm of him with Donald. When I saw you and the horror and pain on your face, I realized that you knew everything, and I thought I was going to die. I realized that my life was over, my wonderful marriage was destroyed. You stayed with Stacy, and the two of you comforted each other. And then the day came when all the walls collapsed, when that newspaper article spread everything around the world. Donald stupidly decided to hold a press conference to deny everything, and I couldn't let him do it, so I spilled everything about our affair and ruined us both. Katie paused briefly in her story and tried to maintain some semblance of composure before continuing with her confession. When Donald was forced to resign as mayor, he disappeared overnight. I didn't hear a word from him for a month. During this time, I became an outcast in society. No one wanted to talk to me. I rented a small room in a squalid hotel. You allowed me to take my clothes and cosmetics, but nothing else. For 3 weeks, I did nothing but cry from shame for everything I did. You gave me one opportunity to talk to you, but I realized that there is no forgiveness in your heart. When you took Stacy to your mother and I moved back into the house, I thought things would get better, but the loneliness was eating me up inside, And when Donald called and said he forgives me and asked me to join him, I jumped at the chance. I was so lonely that the opportunity to be with another person was something I couldn't refuse, so I rented out the house and went to Donald. I thought it would be the safe haven I needed, and it was for a week or two. We picked up where we left off, the sex was good, and we talked about marriage once my divorce from you was final. Donald had changed, but he still seemed to care about me. His ego was crushed when you caused his downfall, and the only job he could find was as an assistant manager at Dennis's. He hated you and blamed you for all his troubles. When Stacy called me and told me you were hurt, I knew I had to find you. I needed to talk to you, Bob, and even though I knew forgiveness was impossible, I had to see you and beg you to let me fully confess my sins, to cleanse my soul so that we could both move on, even though I knew that we are never ever getting back together. Then she fell silent. She sank into a chair. It was as if her body had suddenly been stripped of all bones and tendons, and she was empty inside. It was sad to see. The woman I loved more than life itself betrayed me, but she betrayed herself even more. We were both silent for several minutes. I lay on the hospital bed in a state of shock, while Katie sat slumped in a chair, quietly sobbing. "Is that all, Katie? Everything you wanted to say?" "One more thing," her voice was almost a whisper. "I read in the newspaper that Connolly was found in a pig pen, covered in manure. His injuries were serious, but not life-threatening. And I should feel sorry for him." "No, of course not. The article said there was a sign pinned to his shirt." "A sign?" She nodded. "Just one strange word, Hua." I think even in the dark Katie could see my smile. Brotherhood takes care of its own. "Okay, Katie, you said your thing, and I believe it came from the heart. And now that I've listened to you, it's your turn to listen to me." I tried not to be too harsh, but I could feel the anger starting to build inside me. "I don't know how you feel after what happened to that bastard who ruined our marriage, but I'm sure you feel bad about everything else, probably worse than you've ever felt in your life. And I think you finally understand how much you've lost and how much pain you've caused me and Stacy, and I believe that you're willing to do anything to go back and change everything. Hell, I wish I could too, but it's impossible. It's sad, isn't it, how people who supposedly love each other can hurt each other so much. I've seen hell, Katie, with my own eyes. I held a young man who was married and had a child in my arms as he died. I saw the guard post overrun by the enemy and participated in the attack that drove them back, while men on both sides died around me. I slept in full combat gear in 115-degree heat and felt the pain of ordering soldiers to go on dangerous missions, knowing that some would not return. But through it all, I've never felt pain quite like the one I felt when I saw you and Connolly walk out of that hotel room like happy newlyweds. You killed me, Katie, sucked the life out of me. Every night when I close my eyes, I see you and Connolly kissing and dancing like lovers. Now I'm lying here with too much time to think, and I've realized that I can actually forgive you. I forgive you, Katie. I forgive you for everything. For the betrayal, for the lies, even for the fact that you returned to Connolly after my return to Afghanistan. I forgive you, Katie, but I will never be able to forget it. And if I can't forget, I can't trust, and without trust, there is nothing. I'm so sorry, Bob." She was crying now. "I'm sorry too, Katie, me too." 3 long years have passed since that night, and much has changed. I have undergone countless grueling hours of therapy, both physical and psychological, and am now able to walk with the help of a cane. My daughter Stacy is 19 years old and a freshman at the United States Military Academy. I received a fairly high award, although deep down I know that there are many others more worthy. Stacy was with me at the ceremony, and I think that's when she decided to pursue a career in the military. Katie and I didn't get back together. That's not going to happen. He and Connolly both paid a very high price for their sins, and I'm trying to put it all behind me. Stacy and I continue to communicate with Katie, but only about our daughter. After all, we created it together, and it brings us both great pride. Stacy is slowly rebuilding her relationship with her mother. It's not easy for her, but she says Katie is her mom, the only one she'll ever have, and she wants to maintain a relationship with her. I live in Houston and am back working as a technical designer for a large electronics company. During the divorce process, Katie gave up most of her property, taking only what she needed for a fresh start. She bought a small apartment in a town in upstate New York. I heard from Stacy that Katie has started dating someone again, and I really hope she finds happiness, but that someone won't be me. I also heard from several sources that Donald Connolly seemed to have disappeared off the face of the earth. This could only happen to him for the better. I decided it was time to get back into my social life and start dating again. Now I can walk quite well, and the rest of the wounds are almost healed. Also, there's this cute rehab tech who's just a couple years younger than me that I've got my eye on. She is a short brunette with a keen sense of humor. We flirt every time we see each other. She says the scar on the right side of my face gives me charisma, and my modern prosthetics make me a mysterious man. I'm starting to think that I like her as much as she likes me. I think with someone like her, I can learn to trust again. Of course, I'm ready to find out. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.